Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to do a very quick market update for June 2022, and then I'm going to have some very specific advice if you're thinking of purchasing real estate at some point during this year, or you're thinking of selling real estate. Some of the best advice that I can give for buyers or sellers at this current time. If this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in Vancouver. I make these educational videos to help you in your buying or selling journey. If you've been following for a bit and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. So the real estate market, the best way that I can describe it, and this is a feet on the street perspective from someone who obviously works in the market on a day-to-day basis. The best way I can describe it is if you picture one of those old Western movies where there's a standoff between two cowboys. I mean, honestly speaking, I don't think I've ever watched a Western, but I can picture this scene where you have two cowboys that are staring at each other and their hands are just ready to reach for their guns, and they're just waiting to see who's going to reach for their guns first. That's essentially the relationship between buyer and seller in this current market. Bit of a stalemate, depending on the property type and depending on where you're looking. The buyer and seller standoff between the seller price expectation and the buyer not really having a large sense of urgency is causing a bit of a pause in the market. What we've seen on a year-over-year basis, I'm not going to bore you with stats, but I'm going to give you a few of them. Sales quantity for Fraser Valley is down over 50%. For Metro Vancouver, sales quantity on a year-over-year basis down 30%. What I think you guys are more concerned about is real estate prices and where the prices are compared to last year. Of course, they're not going to be down. We've seen about a 20 to 30% increase in the last year and a half or so on both sides, Fraser Valley and Metro Vancouver. So you're not going to hear a year-over-year metric when it comes to price that talks about it falling, but on a month-over-month basis, so when we compare ourselves to April, prices have dropped now in the Fraser Valley for all property types. That's condo, detached properties, and townhomes. Similar story for Metro Vancouver, except condos have not quite fallen in price yet. It's been a much softer, a slower kind of stagnation for Metro Vancouver versus the Fraser Valley. Some of this comes down to inventory. On a year-over-year basis, Metro Vancouver is actually has less inventory available on the market than it did a year ago, whereas it's a different story in the Fraser Valley. Inventory is piling up, and I think that's why you're seeing the sales quantity drop so much. And I think there's going to be a lot of purchase opportunities, specifically in the Fraser Valley, if you're going to compare the two markets. So as I said, not going to bore you with a bunch of stats, but basically what we're seeing in the market is we're seeing sellers holding out for higher prices that they could have obtained in January or February. Buyers reading headlines, seeing that, look, interest rates and subsequently mortgage rates are going to continue to increase through the year. There's not a huge urgency to purchase at this time. Typically, summer months are slower in general. I personally expect that July, August are going to be some of the slower July, August that we've seen in a very long time. If we look at, for example, a 10-year average, which is it's a good metric to look at, because you're looking at a 10-year span. Metro Vancouver sales quantity down about 12 or 13%. So essentially, sales activity is below average when you compare it over a long period of time. And it's always best to compare metrics over a long period of time. So as I said off the top, I want to give some very specific advice to sellers, and I want to give some very specific advice to buyers. I'm going to start with the sellers. What I'm noticing in this market, and when I meet with clients, a lot of them, like I said, do have pricing of 6 months ago trapped in their head. Maybe their neighbor or a friend sold a property in the area for a certain price, and they're hoping to get that level of a price. There is a lot of risk if you misprice a property in a market that's heading downwards. And what I'm going to try and illustrate something with my words here. So suppose the market value of your property is right here, and now you've decided that you want to try the market. You want to try to get a higher price. So you want to price right above where today's market value is. Well, when you're in a market where every catalyst, every indicator is telling us that the sale price is likely to continue dropping over the next several months, when you price yourself this high and you say, look, I'm going to try this price for a month, worst case scenario, I can reduce my price later. When you price at that amount, and now a month or two later, you're saying, look, I didn't get the offer that I wanted. Now I'm willing to reduce the price. You are, without a doubt, going to sell your property for less money than you would have had you just priced it effectively to begin with. What I always think about in these scenarios, this is always what pops in my mind, is, to be a homeowner, any of you that own real estate, a lot of you put blood, sweat, and tears literally to purchase that real estate, to be able to afford it. You may have taken on more hours at work. You may have, worked hard to get a promotion. You may have cut back on discretionary spending and going out, hanging out with friends. Whatever it might be, you made a lot of sacrifices to purchase that real estate. And it never made sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me how, when it comes time to sell, that you would essentially gamble your opportunity at getting the best possible price you could for the home, considering all that you put in to home ownership. So my advice to sellers is to price yourself appropriately right from the start. The real estate market, it is so forgiving for sellers. And what I mean by that is, if you price at market value, or God forbid, you price a little bit below market value, you're going to get more than one offer, and you're going to sell for higher. So the market truly determines the price. Your key as a seller, obviously, is to work with a real estate agent you trust, and you trust is going to put money into your listing, is going to invest into your listing to get it in front of as many people as possible. And then you can trust that the real estate market is going to get you today's market price for it. So don't test the market. This is not the market to be testing. If you're thinking, oh, I want to achieve a very high price, I just want to see what happens, and you need to move, you need to sell your property, don't do it. You could find yourself leaving $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 on the table. The detached segment, for example, in Metro Vancouver, it has dropped. A lot of properties have dropped 10, 12% over the last 2 or 3 months. So again, if you're trying to ask for a high price, thinking you can just reduce in a couple months, you're gonna sell for $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 less than you could have got today. Now, for the buyers, and I know this is going to be tricky to understand, to fathom. My first piece of advice, and look, I'm not a news junkie, but when it comes to real estate news articles, I'm soaking it all in. But one thing I've learned about real estate and anything, when you look at the media and you look at news articles, is you need to stay away from reading solely headlines. A lot of headlines out there that say, I see the market dropping 10, 15%. Sales prices could drop 20%. Heck, if you ask me, I could tell you that I see prices going up about 5 to 7%, but that I also see prices falling about 10 to 12%. And you're probably wondering, how does that even make sense? But the key is, I feel like in a certain segment, in a certain area, prices could rise. But I feel like, for example, with detached properties in certain areas, perhaps the Fraser Valley, I think prices could drop. So my advice for buyers, number one, is don't get scared off by headlines. And if you see an article that has, an eye-catching headline, do read the article. Find where that data is coming from, and even send that article to your real estate agent and say, hey, what do you think about this? Like, does this make sense to you? What are they trying to say? I think all of us, that are considering getting into the market, or we're in the market, we should all have a real estate agent right there who we trust, that we can, pass this sort of stuff back and forth, so that you can get a further scope to what a headline might mean. So that's number one, is, if you are going to read headlines, take a little bit of time to actually read the article and see where the data is coming from. Number two, and this is going to sound so realtor speak, but I truly believe it. It's a fair statement. If you are considering purchasing your principal residence this year, this is a great year to do it. I'm not suggesting that prices aren't going to fall further by the end of the year, but what I am saying is, if it's going to be your principal residence, you're going to hold it for a long period of time. This is a great year to do it. I think summer, like I mentioned, is going to be very, very slow, but there are going to be sellers that do need to sell their property. And as a buyer, you're going to want to be able to purchase without stress. You're going to want to purchase with a financing condition and an inspection condition, and enough time to make an educated decision. If you can afford the payments and you're not overextending yourself, and it's going to be your principal residence. Great year to buy. Get yourself prepared right now. Get your talk to a mortgage broker and have your mortgage pre-approval going. Again, I know this is tough to fathom because it's human nature to follow the herd, so to speak. So when we hear headlines saying no one is buying, the market's going to crash, bad time to buy, everyone takes a step back, and it's a psychological thing. I've suffered from it myself. Had I not, I probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair doing videos. I'd be somewhere else. Maybe I'd be on a beach somewhere. Maybe I'd own 50 properties somewhere. But what I'm saying is, don't allow yourself to be scared off. Make smart decisions by talking to experts, and realize that the time that you want to purchase is when other people aren't, because you want to be able to buy with a financing subject. You want to be able to buy with an inspection subject. You want to be able to take your time and make an informed decision. So my advice to buyers, again, is stay away from headlines. If you're going to read the headlines, read further, dive further. Again, stats and metrics, they can be misconstrued any way that you like. I can pull any stat I want and make it sound positive, or I can make it sound negative, and you could too. So just keep in mind that headlines are meant to grasp your attention, capture it. And I know we don't have a lot of time to be reading articles, and that's why I suggest when you find stuff like this, send it to your realtor. Say, hey, what do you think? Let your realtor do the work for you. You know what I mean? Send it to them, say, hey, what do you think of this and why do you think this way? Now, very quickly, a disclaimer. If you're someone who's thinking you're going to purchase real estate this year, you're going to flip it within the next 2 years, you need to make a short-term profit on it. You're thinking of purchasing a pre-sale and assigning that in a couple years, this is not the time for you to buy. Don't buy in those conditions. It's not going to work out for you. It's not going to be pretty. I know I rambled a bit, but I hope that you got some good advice and you got some good info from this video. If you did, I would love it if you could hit the like button and perhaps consider subscribing to the channel. What it does is it sends this video out to more people, so it can possibly help them as well. If you're in the Vancouver area or the Fraser Valley and you want my help with real estate, I'd love to help you out. All my contact info is in the description box below. But outside of that, thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and have a wonderful day.